What's going on, everybody? It is your host of Conversing Over Drinks, Cedric Turner, and we have a new episode today. We have a new guest, Jenna Allen. She is from British Columbia in Canada, which is my first Canadian guest, so that's great. And she is a soon-to-be author, a life coach, and we're going to have a great conversation today about relationships from the man's point of view and from a woman's point of view. I love doing episodes with female guests because it's just a different point of view when it comes to talking about certain topics. So, Jenna, is there anything else you would like to say to the audience before we jump into the episode?
Just thank you for having me, and I'm excited to share my experiences with you guys.
That's great. That's great. So, before we jump into the episode, we're going to have the first question, and that is going to kickstart the episode off. And the first question is, what do you think is the biggest problem with today's relationships?
I think it's hard because I feel like there's so many problems with today's relationships. I would say actually from what I've learned is a lack of accountability is actually a really big one.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
I feel like that's been in every generation's
Yeah. Yeah.
relationships. It's always going to be a lack of accountability from either
Yeah.
side.
Yeah.
But one of the biggest things I feel like is that I've talked to my buddies about this, and I wanted to know from a female's perspective,
Yeah.
um, being raised by women. Like I was raised by my grandmother, my aunt, my mother. Um, my grandfather was a big male role model in my life, but it wasn't like he was an old school black man. So it was like until you hit a certain age, you weren't really kicking it with him a lot. So I was raised by my female relatives. And so being raised that way, I always said to my buddies, I'm like, I love women. I love their feminist movement. I love that the equal rights. I wish that everything was equal. I feel like it should be equal. I feel like it should be 50-50. But in saying that, I also believe that most women want to grow and
Mhm.
evolve, but they
Mhm.
want men to stay like that old school version of men, and they don't
Mhm.
like it when men evolve and grow. And so I just want your point of view on that.
It's funny because I actually want a man that is going to want to grow. Like that's actually a quality I look for in my future husband is someone that has that same ambition. Like it doesn't mean our journeys have to perfectly align, but it would be cool to, meet someone who wants to grow and not stay stagnant. And I would say actually going back to the first question is actually another thing I was thinking about is I find a lot of people are stuck in their ways and there's not enough open-minded people when it comes to relationships is what I've learned from I have friends who are married. I know people who are married, right? So and the reality is marriage is always growing and you go through different phases of life. I'm not married, so I can't say from personal experience there, but like just from watching other people and their relationships is that a you go through different stages of life together, and if you're not evolving, you're not growing, like you're not moving forward. And so I think a lot of people need to get out of their comfort zone more and be open minded to evolving as a person,
Yeah.
right? So, yeah.
And I understand that, and I appreciate that answer. That was a very good answer. But I just what I think I was trying to say, I don't know if it got kind of missed there, is that uh like women have evolved. Like women
Mhm,
feel the need to like some women I've heard say, I don't need a man. Like I can do everything
mhm,
that
mm,
they can do and
mhm,
I don't need it. And but those same women want an old fashioned man. They want an old
mm,
man that goes to work, pays everything,
mhm,
back home, does that. They want that type of man. They don't think men should evolve. And like when men evolve and men start to show more of their sensitive side and they're more open with their feelings, I feel like a woman's favorite quote is "You need to man up." And I'm like, I don't like that's something
mm,
where I'm like, how why is it okay for you to evolve and take more features of a man, but I can't
mhm.
evolve and show more feelings of my sensitive side without you saying I need to man up.
Mhm. I can understand that point of view, and I feel like that like, it depends on the woman, you know? I mean, I personally am not like that, but I do I have you're not the first person that has, talked about that. That is a thing, like, I do think that I think people in general just need to be more clear on exactly what they're looking for, right? Because you don't wanna end up in a double standard or anything
Yeah,
like that, right? So, yeah, I understand what you're saying.
yeah, because it's very confusing. Like I've told a
Mhm.
buddy this. I'm like, I don't have a problem being an old school man. I
Mhm.
was like, but I was like, this is the same reason why, like, a lot of very, very educated, very self-driven, very confident women are kind of like struggling in relationships because I feel like they want to do too much of the man's responsibility, and the man is kind of lost. Like they're like, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. This is what
Mhm.
I can do,
Yeah.
and you're constantly at odds with yourself and your own ego, and it's not letting me be a man.
Yeah.
And I've said this before to a woman, and she kind of got mad at me about it. But I was like, the biggest thing that I think women haven't, this new generation of women haven't really understood is that most men, like, we, like women, if you don't bring anything else to the table, we're kind of like, what else do we need you for? Like, and I told her, I was like, and I hate the way that the system is set up, but that's just kind of how it is. I'm like, whatever job you work at, I can get the same job and I'm guaranteed to make more than you because that's just how the salaries
Yeah.
are.
Yeah.
I was like, physically, you can't do the same things I can do. If you can't cook, I'm gonna learn how to cook and be a cook. Like, if you're not bringing anything else to the table besides you, like, there has to be a value there. And it's weird because I understand the woman's point of view, but then I understand when my boys talk to me and I understand their point of view because being a man, I understand that too. So I'm like, I don't know what side of the fence to be on. I just kind of stay in the middle, but it's stuff that I like to talk about with my female guests when we talk about
Yeah.
relationships.
Can I add something to that actually?
Yeah,
So the other thing I want to say too to that is that I think the problem is everyone's done with bullshit. No, like, and this is not just men, it's not just women, excuse my language, but like I think the problem is so many people are tired of being hurt that we've kind of built a shell, and everyone's becoming so independent that they're so scared of relationships that they're like it's if anything it's actually causing more problems
yeah,
because people are so like tired of getting hurt and being in the wrong relationships that they're like, well, I can just do everything by myself. And I think that that's what's happening with women is women are now becoming hyper independent because they don't feel like they can rely on a man. But at the same time, from my experience, is what I've learned is a lot of the relationships I've been in, it's because I struggled with like codependency. And
yeah,
at some point, like, yeah, sure, like some of the men I dated weren't compatible with me, but I chose to date those people. So
yeah,
I need to be accountable for the man that I choose to date. And so I think that that's a piece that a lot of people are missing going back to the lack of accountability, right? Like I am at a point now where I'm not going to settle for less. I
yeah,
know what I offer, I know who I am, I know my value, and I'm at a point where I'm independent, but I'm not so hyper independent that I'm like gonna completely shut off every single person. Like, you know what I
yeah,
mean? It's more of just I know my worth now and I'm not in a place where I'm just gonna jump into a relationship with the next person, right? So more people need to kind of I personally think that it would do better if more people looked within and were able to find that balance of okay, like you can be an independent woman, but there's nothing wrong with asking for help either. And
yeah,
vice versa too, like both ends, right? But I think everyone's just fed up with
yeah.
with
But
relationships.
and I understand that too. And the only thing I would say back to that is that a lot of people have guarded themselves when it comes to relationships. But
Mhm.
the biggest issue is that a lot of people go out in the world and that's what they do. And they could be talking to the perfect person. And
Mhm.
they just let them go by because they're judging them off of stuff they don't know,
Yeah.
and
No,
judging them off
exactly.
the beginning.
Yeah.
And it's always funny to me because I've had a lot of girlfriends that are just girlfriends, not that I've dated, and we've talked about it. And they're like, "Well, there's no good man out," and I'm like, it, "We are out. We see what you bring, and we don't want to come talk to you. Like you can't have 4 kids by 3 different dudes and telling me there's no good guys out here. Like that's you've made some decisions that aren't good decisions, and a lot of men don't want to jump into certain situations. Like like for the longest time, I didn't really like dating women with children, and it wasn't nothing to do with the woman or the child. It was everything to do with what comes in that relationship. It was
Mhm.
understanding those levels because being raised in a single household, I understood those levels from watching dudes come into the house with my mother. So I
Yeah.
understood that level that if you start dating her, you're dating the kid. And if you get close to the kid and y'all break up, now you're
Mhm.
losing 2 people, not one, 2 people.
Mhm.
That
Yeah.
kid is losing that kid is losing somebody that they've grown close to.
Yeah.
And so it's very risky to get into that relationship because you don't know when it's gonna happen. You can get into and then you also have to deal with the other counterpart of the father or
Mhm.
the mother if it's a woman dating. Like, and I used to tell people all the time, like, dude, I was like, if I date a chick with kids, I'm not gonna do much when it comes to punishing or yelling at that kid because that's not my kid. Like,
Mhm.
I'm like, that's her and that's him. Like, and I don't want to do anything to that kid. And they turn around and
Mhm.
go tell their daddy, and then their daddy come over and I got issues with the dad. And I'm like, I don't want any of that. That's just unnecessary nonsense. And
Yeah.
so it's it's very weird right now with the dating pool because you have a
Mhm.
lot of women in the dating pool that as much as I love social media has ruined really dating for a while. Like, and I
Yeah.
don't know when it's going to change. I don't know how it's going to change, but social media has crushed dating
Yeah.
because it's it's too much of a lot of people getting into the business of other people,
Mhm.
and like I had, and I could see it in the difference generation. Like when I've dated older women think the way I think, and they're they don't like when we're out in public. It's cool, but they don't want people knowing our relationships. Like I'm not gonna be
Yeah.
posting on Facebook about them. I'm not
Yeah.
on TikTok about them. I was like, I keep everything in house. Like
Yeah.
that's our relationship.
Mhm.
Younger women, they feel like if I don't do that, I'm hiding them, and I'm like, I'm not hiding you. It's no one else's
Yeah.
business what we're doing. It's just
Mhm.
us. Like,
Yeah, exactly.
why do I need to share what we're doing? I was like, I'm not going to get on Facebook every 10 minutes and be like, I just saw
Mhm.
her walk by. Like, no, I'm not doing that. I'm not 12. Like, this is like I don't get it. I didn't grow up in this social media era. Like, it started when I
Mhm.
was in college. So
Yeah.
it's very different for me. And so
Yeah.
I don't, it's very weird. And that leads us into our next question. Do you believe that real love still exists? Or is
Oh,
it
yeah.
just
No, I do. I do.
you
I
do?
think I do because I see it with my mom and, like, stepdad, right? Like, I
Yeah.
see it in friends, right? I think and this is not a hard truth that not a lot of people wanna hear because it's a hard pill to swallow, but it's so true, but a lot of people want a partner, but they don't wanna be a partner,
Hmm.
and that's the truth, right? A lot of
Yeah.
people see, for me, I want both. I want to be a wife one day, right? But
Yeah.
I also want a husband. So it's like, I think the problem is everyone's gotten to this point of me, 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 me. It's all about me and not enough about, okay, well, what do you bring to the table? Like it needs to go both ways, right?
Yeah.
But I do believe that love still exists. I just think it's about like who you want to be the right person for, right? Like who do you want to be with, right? It's not about like I no longer believe in love at first sight. I don't believe in all that stuff. I believe that love is a choice
Yeah.
and that if you want to marry someone, you want to be with somebody, you have to choose to do that. It's
Yeah,
a choice, right? You're never going to be perfect. So I do think it still exists. I just think it's a lot more work now than it was before, and I think that it's just harder to find, but I do think it's out there.
yeah. I think it. I think that it. Part of me still thinks that it exists, and the other part of me is very cynical about it. Like, because the other part of me sees, like, I've had this conversation with my buddies, um, because they're all married with
Mhm,
wives, beautiful wives, children,
mhm,
and um, I like I've talked to them about this. I've talked to my best friend about it all the time. I'm like, dude, I'm never jealous. I'm not a jealous person. I
mhm,
don't get jealous. I was like, but I'm envious. I was like, I'm envious of what I see because I was like, I see you guys happy. I was like, I see you guys. I was like, it's I used to tell I used to tell my buddies when we were younger. I'm like, whenever you find that person, I was like, I'll being a religious person. I was like, it's like the Bible said. I was like, even though they left some stuff out, I was like, Eve was part of Adam. I was like, she
mhm.
wasn't just fabricated. I was like, she was
Yeah.
literally part of him. God took a
Mhm,
rib out of him and made
mhm,
her. I was like, so she completed him.
mhm.
And like, and that's I feel like that's what we're all looking for as men. I was like, as men, we're looking for that rib that was ripped out, and we're looking
Mhm.
for to be completed again. And I see that in my buddies. I see them complete.
Yeah,
Um, and I see the way that their kids look at them. And I see the way their wives look at them. And I'm just envious of that.
yeah.
But I tell them, I was like, now I'm at a weird age because now I'm in my mid 30s. And if I date older than me, then she's going to come with kids and other stuff, kids and marriages and all this other stuff.
Mhm.
I was like, but if I date younger than me, I got to deal with this new generation. And this new
Yeah,
generation is very annoying to me because they're very materialistic and they're very short attention span. Like, and they want so many things that are just unrealistic. Like, I hear what they be talking about, and they're like, I need this guy to make this, this, and this. And I'm like, first off, that's only 5% of the population that makes this,
yeah,
this, and I was like, and then second, what are you bringing to the table? Like, because people that make this, this, and this, they're not looking for people that don't bring anything to the table. They're looking for people that bring something that adds value to their life. And if you do not
mhm.
add value to their life, they're going to use you for what they need, and then they're just going to cast you away. And
Yeah.
so I feel like that level of love and commitment is hard to find now because it's just you don't know who's real and who isn't anymore. Like I
Well, yeah.
yeah,
And it also comes down to one thing I've had to learn is it really depends on your priorities and your preferences, right? Like, I'm not going to lie, there's been unrealistic expectations I had to get off the table. And I had to think, I'm like, okay, is a marriage important enough for me to really adjust what I not saying I have to sacrifice my values, but there are little things that shouldn't really be the biggest deal. Like, the more limitations you have on what you're looking for, the more likely you're not going to find somebody because every person has baggage, right? Like, if I was in your situation, I would pick the person with a kid versus the younger people, right? I would rather take on that baggage or that extra to be with the right person than to date somebody who's younger and doesn't have the emotional maturity level, right? So
yeah,
it's almost just like picking your heart because it doesn't matter who you end up with, it's still hard work, right? And you're never going to find someone perfect, but I think understanding the difference between like core values and just like little things, right?
okay. So let's that's a good question. So let's segue into this question because this is a question that uh, a lot of people have asked me to ask people, and I just haven't. But I decided to do so today. Um, Build your ideal man.
Okay, that's a really good question. Someone who is emotionally available. someone that can like support me when I'm emotional or going through stuff. Somebody that's loyal, obviously, and honest. And then someone who's open minded. So someone that's wants to grow as a person, wants to grow in the relationship, and someone whose values aligned with mine. Like I want our love languages to match if that's possible, right? Someone that I can like we can both give each other the same love that we both want from each other and give and receive kind of thing, like just being there for each other, and someone that is my best friend, someone that I can goof around with and get hyper with and like do fun stuff with. I think that that is ultimately also really important, is just someone who's going to be your best friend for life, right? And so that, and then just someone who can communicate, I guess, right? Someone who wants to communicate their feelings, somebody that I can problem solve together. Problem solving, someone that I can like, okay, we have an argument, let's work it out, let's talk about it. That's kind of those are like the big core values that I look for. So,
Okay. Okay. Um, two things. The reason I asked that question is because my buddies, I kind of owe them now because they said if you ask that question to a woman, she's gonna give you a lot of stuff. Where a man, our response is very short. So like I owe them that now because I was like, nah, they won't do that. But you gave a lot of stuff, and that's a lot of stuff to check off. And for a man, our list is very short. Our li- our list is very short. Like our list is just, I think for most men, our list is just I want somebody who is going to believe in me, support me, and be loyal. That's it. That's all we're looking
yeah,
for.
I think
that's all.
women, yeah,
That's all we're
women
looking
want
for.
detail. Yeah.
And like, and women think another thing that we're looking for is looks and everything. Like, I'm gonna tell you right now, most men don't care about your looks. Like
Yeah.
when we're younger, we do. When we're
Mhm.
younger, we do. But when we get older, we hit about 25. Like, we don't care about the looks.
Mhm.
We care less. Like, it's
Mhm.
you hit those three, then we're like, hey, she's good. She's the one.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's because it's hard to find. Like looks are gonna come
Mhm.
and go. Like, but
Mhm.
those three characteristics in a woman, if you find those three, those aren't
Mhm.
going anywhere. And so like
Mhm.
those are the ones that we look for.
Mhm.
And it's also like and there's things that women do that they unconsciously don't know that kind of knock them off of a lot of guys' list. Like because one thing that I feel like older, mature men, when they look at women, a few things that kind of throw them off is the woman that has makeup caked on. Like that throws them off because that's like you're hiding something. Like why are you wearing that much makeup? Like you're hiding something. And that's a turn off. And then uh the augmentations. Like if you got fake tits, you got fake ass, all this other stuff, like that stuff throws us off too. And especially it throws me off for sure. Like some men love it, but I guarantee about 60-70% of us don't. And I was like, and it throws me off for just a certain reason because I'm like,
Mhm.
me being a religious person, the augmentations throw me off because my buddy asked me about it because he was like, "Why don't you like that?" And I was like, "Because I was like that tells me everything I need to know about her." I was like, "That tells me that she's insecure." I was like, "That tells me that she has self doubt. That tells me that she doesn't have any confidence in herself." And he was like, "Why?" He's like, "How do you get all of that?" And I was like, "Because I was like, as a religious person, I was like, we believe that God made us in the image of Him. He made us to be
Mhm.
beautiful." To get augmentations is basically telling God, hey, you fucked up. Like you fucked up. This ain't how it's supposed to look. I need to fix this. And I was like, if you're telling God that he messed up, how am I ever going to reach your expectations? I'm like,
Mhm.
so that's where I'm like, nah, I can't do it.
Mhm.
And a lot of people, I just want your opinion on that. Like, do you disagree? Do you agree? Like, how you feel about
I One of the things that I've learned, I do my best to not judge people so much on their looks. I think that it takes time to I mean, I do think sure, I mean, I think that you did definitely make some valid points about it. I do think that, and no offense to my gender, but coming from someone who used to have caked on makeup, who now barely I don't wear a lot, right? Like I'm a lot I'm more confident wearing less makeup now, but yeah, I was insecure back then. So like I do feel like there is some truth to what you're saying, but I approach it differently, right? Like I try not to, assume something about someone based on what they look like cuz I just, I mean, yeah, you're as you get to know them, then yeah, you might, be proven right but at the same time I just think it's important to give people like a chance, I guess. That's kind of my approach to dating is I usually go on more than one date with somebody as well, just to
Mhm.
kind of give people an opportunity to get to know them because I don't think you can fully know someone after one date.
You don't?
No.
You don't? So if you go on a date with someone for, let's say it's a 4 to 5 hour date. Let's say
Yeah.
it's pick up and go to dinner, then catch a movie afterwards, maybe take a walk at the park, and then you go on your way. You don't feel like you can get a general idea of that person from that one date.
No. No, I can't.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
No, I'm not. I'm the thing with me is I have higher standards, but I have more realistic expectations.
Yeah.
I give things time now and I found that my approach before was actually causing more failed relationships because I wasn't giving people at least I mean, I was either giving people too much time or I
Mm.
wasn't giving them enough. So now I kind of have like a 3 to 4 date rule where I'm like,
Oh.
yeah, where I'm like rule of like get really seeing if
Mm.
we're meshing or whatever. But that's just me though.
That's a lot. That's a lot. That's a lot. Like it's um I don't know. Like I do differ on that. Like I understand where you're coming from. Like I completely understand. That works for you. That works for you, and that's okay.
Yeah.
Um, I've just I'm a reader of people, and so when I'm going on the first date, like I'm reading everything. Like I'm
Mhm.
looking at certain things you do. I'm looking at
Mhm.
like how you carry yourself. I'm looking at when certain things pop up, like how do you
Mhm.
handle that situation? Like if
Yeah.
you the way you compose, the way you're composed, the way you walk, the way you move, like I'm watching all of that. So after the first date, I pretty much know if I'm gonna
Mhm.
continue this or if I'm gonna be like, hey, we should
Mhm.
probably just be friends. Like
Yeah.
and I don't do it to be mean or rude. I do it more out of kindness because I'm like, I don't want to waste your time. I don't want
Mhm.
to waste my time. Like
Yeah.
you like, I'm like, if we go into this and I'm just like, hey, let me give them another chance, and then I was like, we're 6 months down the road, and then we finally do, like that's a lot of time wasted, a lot of
Mhm.
time wasted for both people,
Yeah.
and so I was like, I always feel like after that first date, I feel like I know what I need to know. Like I know if there's a reason to go on that second date, or if there's a reason to be like, hey, maybe we should just be
Mhm.
friends. And like
Yeah.
we can still hang out and be cool, but you can keep looking, I'm gonna keep looking. And so
Yeah. I feel like and then, like, I feel like if you have that ability, then great, right? And if that works for you, that works for you. I don't won't prolong 6 months anymore. Like, I just more so what I mean is, like, obviously, if there's very clear red flags the first date, I'm not gonna go on another one. But
yeah,
more so, the reason I have that 3 or 4 date rule is because if the first date's a little shy and awkward or maybe if, like, maybe it went decent, right? But it's not enough to have a relationship right away with that person, then I'm like, okay, like it's more me giving time to see if feelings develop, but
yeah.
I don't prolong it months. I just,
Mm,
hey, let's go on a couple dates, let's see if feelings develop, see if we're and if I after a few dates I'm still like not sure, then obviously I'm like, okay, we're not going to continue. But
yeah.
that's just my approach. So, yeah.
Man. See, like I get that. But most men that kills them because in the beginning, like if a man's going on that date, he already has the initial feelings because most men we're not going to go on a date with somebody that we don't have feelings for. So if the feeling, like if you're like, I gotta wait and see if my feelings grow for you, like that right there hits us like that's a red flag for us because we're like, okay, she sees me as a friend. And if she sees me as a friend, that's all I'm ever gonna be. Like she can have some romantic styles with me, and that could be cool. But at the end of the day, she's always just gonna see me as a friend. And
I've never heard of that before. No one's ever, because I've had the opposite. So
uh,
yeah, I've had a different experience with that. So that's new for me.
I was like, because it's just it's different. Like it's so a lot of men look at relationships different, and a lot of us are like, I think something that a lot of women don't understand is that we're cool by ourselves. Like,
Mhm,
and like the only thing that we ever when we're ready for that is the three things I said. We're just looking for someone that supports us, that
mhm,
is committed and loyal. Like that's what we want,
mhm,
because we're looking for that missing rib. But a lot of us are cool being alone. Like Adam was cool being alone. Like like
mhm,
God didn't make Eve until Adam was like, "Hey, kind of
mhm,
lonely down here." And I was like, "But that was Adam was way into his life by then."
mhm,
And I think that's the cruel thing of of our livelihood is that men don't have a clock. Women
mhm,
have a clock. Like
mhm,
men don't have one, women do. And so women start pursuing, I feel like women start pursuing the wrong men because of that clock. And
mhm.
men don't give the right woman enough time because of our clock. Because we're like, yeah, like her clock doesn't run out. Like I could have a kid when I'm 80. You can't. Like it is so it's very different. I feel like that clock mentality has made a lot of people switch how they look at relationships too.
I mean, I don't really. I mean, I understand that sense, to
You
have
gotta you
biological
gotta come back.
children. So
You gotta come back. I was like, you gotta come back. You did this in all your
oh,
style. Like,
sorry.
yeah.
I was saying that I don't really have a plan to have my own biological children, so I don't worry about the clock thing. I'm
Ah,
Yeah, I have my own unique view on kids and yeah,
yeah.
so
You keep flying out. Like I don't know what's going on with your mic. Like
weird, weird.
um, but okay, so the kid thing.
Mhm.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so I don't really like I'm also kind of like okay on my own now where I'm like I'm taking my time getting to know people. I'm not
Yeah.
if you know what I mean, I'm not obsessing about it. I'm so
Yeah.
busy with my business and I'm actually made like, with the book and all my like this stuff, I'm like I'll make time for the right people, but I'm enjoying where I'm at, I'm
Yeah.
loving it actually. So
Yeah. The kid thing, that's a big one.
Mhm,
Like
mhm.
that's huge. So like
Mhm.
do you talk about that in the first time? I was like, because I was like, just knowing most men, I know the kid thing is a huge thing for us. Like
Well,
some
you'd be surprised. I've actually talked to a couple men that actually like are open to fostering and adopting and actually
yeah,
like that. Like so I like you'd be surprised how many men like I mean, yes, it depends on the person, right? Like I think,
yeah,
I mean, things change all the time, right?
yeah.
So it's not like it's like if God wanted me to have a kid of my own, then well, because I'm also a Christian too, by the way. But
Oh, I never
it's
said I was
not,
a Christian.
yeah. Oh,
just
okay.
just religious. Not
Okay. Okay. Um, but yeah, no, I have actually talked to guys that are like, yeah, like I would love to foster. I'm open to
yeah.
that. Like, so yeah, yeah.
I don't-
Like, yeah, I
yeah.
think men, honestly, like I think a lot of men. There's also men that are different. too, right? Like some men are old fashioned and then some like I'm finding too that like every man wants something different. Like that's just my experience. I'm finding that there's certain people I'll talk to and what they want in a relationship might be different than someone else's, right? So
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, I mean, that's just everybody in general. Like everybody, not
Yeah.
everybody's gonna be the same. But
Yeah.
I I will throw a short rope out there and say that the majority of men are gonna want their own kids. And,
Mhm.
and it's just it's a I don't know, it's a nature thing. It's a
Mhm.
very natural nature thing. Like mothers have some mothers have that
Mhm.
nature where it's just being a mother comes second nature to them, and they're just great at
Mhm.
it. Some mothers don't.
Mhm.
Just like
Mhm.
with some men they want to reproduce and
Mhm.
they want a kid that looks like them, that has their
Mhm.
blood system and can
Mhm.
continue their name. Um, because that's a big, big thing with men is my name needs to live on. Like it needs to continue.
Yeah.
Uh,
And I've
and so
thought about
yeah,
I'm at a point where I'm okay limiting my options.
yeah,
Like, I know that sounds bad, but I'm okay single to the point where, like, at the end of the day, the right person will, will have things will align, you know? So
yeah,
I'm okay with missing out on potential connections because of that value of mine. I'm okay with that.
yeah.
That's fine. I've come to terms with that. That's fine.
That's cool. That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh man. This has been a fun conversation. I don't know how you feel. It's been fun for me. Uh, I think I was like, I'm very thick skinned, so not a lot of stuff bothers me. So like I just speak. So you said you were okay with fostering and adopting children.
Mhm.
Have you
Mhm.
ever done that?
Nope. It's just
Oh,
something I have an interest in. I've
yeah.
done a lot of research on fostering though, so I am pretty aware of the pros and cons of that.
Oh, research is nothing like doing it though.
No, I have
Yeah,
connections that
yeah.
have yeah, I know people that are in the foster system, so
I was like, it's just when people say that, like it always hits a spot for me being a foster kid, like
Oh,
being a
wow.
foster kid, growing
Yeah.
up in the system, understanding the system,
Mhm.
being a foster parent when I got older and having
Mhm.
a lot of kids under my care, like and now being a teacher,
Mhm.
like it hits a spot when people say that for me
Mhm.
because I'm like, you gotta understand because I know a lot of good foster parents, and I know a lot of people that should not be foster parents.
Mhm. Absolutely. Yeah.
And I'm like, so it's very much something, and it is a partnership, and sometimes it could be the wrong partnership for a
Mhm.
foster kid.
Mhm.
But I mean, it's always good for people to think about that. I just didn't know, like, what is Canada's foster system like?
Yeah. I'm not sure what I know a little bit about the system because I have, like I said, I have people in my life that have sat down with me and spoken the reality of fostering. So,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah,
so I
it's
have an
very
idea.
different. Yeah,
It is very different. But I also I don't know, there's something in my heart that I'm like, I think it'd be a beautiful thing to do, and I really would love the idea of, like, providing a safe home for kids that need it is just amazing, so, yeah.
yeah. And it is always different. I mean,
Yeah.
I've had many foster parents when I was growing up, so it was always different. But I had a lot of respect for the ones that didn't look at me like a foster kid. I had a lot of
Mhm.
respect for the ones that just they were disciplined. They were they gave a damn about what I was doing. They weren't
Mhm.
just like, "Hey, that's another check, so we're just gonna let him do what he wants to do until we're like, oh, we can't take this no more,' and then send him on his way." So it was very different.
Mhm.
But fostering is something. Yeah, if you get into it, like it's something different. It's very different. It takes a very strong person to be a foster parent, to be a
Mhm.
good foster parent. Like
Yeah.
there's
Definitely.
a lot of weak people that are just horrible foster parents. But it
Mhm.
takes a very strong person to be a good foster parent and give a child a good home. So
Yeah.
I wish all the luck to you. I hope
Thank
it
you.
works out. Yeah.
Thank
And
you.
well, in the episode with my final question. My final question is: being a soon-to-be author and life coach, what is the biggest lesson you can give someone about themselves and self-respect and growing as a person and just finding a connection with themselves?
Really just starting within and looking at yourself and being able to, you know, ask yourself the hard questions. And I think growth really starts with accountability and self-awareness. And there's been many times that I've had to look at myself and be like, "Ooh, that hurts to admit." But sometimes that's how you grow. Honestly, like when you can look at yourself and, your flaws and things you want to work on or whatever, but what I've personally learned is I have so much more control over my life because I've become more accountable and because I've become more self-aware, that now that I have all that self-awareness, I have more control over what I do and what I say and, what I have in my life. And I think that self-awareness actually can lead to self-control. And I just think that that would be a good starting point for a lot of people, is just looking within.
Yeah, that's great. That's a great way to end the episode. Like, just be
Yeah.
self-aware of yourself. That's a great way to end it. Okay,
Mhm.
so once again, thank you guys for tuning in to Conversing Over Drinks with your host Cedric Turner, and our special guest today was Jenna Allen. And Jenna, if you want to let everybody know about your future podcast, your future book, where they can find you, so they can look you up on Instagram or Facebook or TikTok or anything like that, please.
Yeah, so my book is called Guided by My Own Mistakes. I don't have a set release date. I literally just finished the table of contents yesterday. I just started writing the first chapter yesterday. So it's basically all about like how my mistakes have guided me to where I am now and all my choices. And so it's kind of my story put in a book. And then my new podcast I'm going to be recording next week with some guests. It's called Misguided or Guided Mistakes. Sorry, which I took the title from my book actually. But the podcast is basically going to be talking about I'm going to have people speak on their stories and healing and mindset, relationships, you know, all sorts of stuff. And then my Instagram is coach underscore with underscore Jenna underscore. I can give you the information to put it in the show notes, but yeah. So
All right, sounds good. And guys, once again, it has been great having this episode today. This has been your host, Cedric Turner, with a special guest. And like she said, I'll have all the information on the episode when we post it on YouTube. We'll have it in the information when we post it online. And it's going to be a great episode. I wish you the best of luck with your book and your
thank
future
you.
show. And
Thank
I'll be
you.
very happy having you on as a guest today. This has been
Thank
your
you.
host, Cedric Turner. Peace. I'm out.